then.
Well, of course it's gonna be a great interview. You're here.
Yep. Nice Natalie.
Yeah.
Yep.
You all stretched and ready?
Yep. I know you did. Last time we talked, you said you wanted to go over some things with Guidestar and with 990s in general for them. So that is all ready.
Yes. I'm looking at our notes. I don't think I recorded our last interview. I have the notes. I was looking. I was like, I know that name. I was looking through my files. I was like, I didn't record anything. Ugh. Looking through my notes, I was like, oh, notes. Look, this is you. Yeah.
Good. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. You recommended I read Jocko Extreme Leadership.
I did.
Yeah.
I love that book. He's fantastic.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
I talked to another couple of ladies that said that guy is out of his mind. Oh, look, it's my party bracelet.
It's a good day for you.
I host trivia at Big Texas Barbecue.
Nice.
And I get free food and drinks and have some fun. And we do brunch. And brunch in Bahrain is free food and free alcohol for the whole time you're there. You pay and it's unlimited.
Oh wow.
But because I started working there, I got in for free and I took full advantage.
Very good.
Someone's like, are you going to take a nap this afternoon? And I'm looking at my schedule. I'm like, I don't know if I have time for a nap. Here's my today's schedule.
Oh my gosh, it looks like mine. Like when I start the work day. Yeah.
This is you. And then there's 1, 2, 3 more. And then there's a going away party that's not on here that I may or may not go to.
I don't know. There looks like there's some white space. You could squeeze in like a 15-minute nap.
There is some white space, and I might have to squeeze in a nap because I'm gonna need it. There's at least an hour in there.
See?
Yeah.
You can get a good 30 minutes, 45 minutes.
Yes. How have you been?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Oh, I left my water over there. Just a sec.
Okay.
I'm definitely gonna need that. I'm all hydrated.
Oh, that's good.
This is 59 cents.
Wow.
For 1.5 liters of water.
Pretty good.
This is Coca-Cola Company.
Oh, wow.
Yes, definitely Guidestar. And what else did you say?
So we also talked about 990s and just kind of reviewing the filing, right? Reviewing the filing deadlines and the requirements for each 990. So whether they're eligible for filing a 990 postcard, a 990 easy, or a 990. And then also a little bit just briefly touching upon the, if they are soliciting in several states for donations, that way they just need to be registered in those states. Their state may not have an actual nonprofit tax exempt return that needs to be filed. It might just be registration.
You know, I didn't ever think of that because all the donations on the nonprofits I was a part of were all from that state.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So when they start doing, where they kind of get tripped up on this is where they do crowdfunding. And sometimes, when it's a small nonprofit and they're grassroots and they're only raising like a couple $1,000s, legally, yes, they're supposed to, but strategically it just doesn't make sense for them because of the registration fees and the compliance work that ties into it. So some nonprofits forego that and wait till they get a little bit larger, but it's still a requirement. It still needs to be on their dashboard of things to do. So, I don't know. Do you want to ask questions? Do you want me to talk? What would you like?
So normally I do a lead in and a little intro, and then I say, "Hey, Nicole, welcome. Tell us, how you're doing it, and tell us about yourself and what it is that you do at, Rosedale CPA." And then you tell us a couple minutes about what it is that you do. And then generally speaking, I ask some leading questions, and have you just talk about what it is that you do.
Okay, perfect. Sounds exciting.
Yeah. Any new developments since we talked about? And you know what I need to do? I need to start putting dates on this stuff. I don't remember the last time we talked. I can look at my calendar.
It was probably like a month and a half ago, something like that, because then tax season came in and tax season kicked my butt. It's still kicking my butt.
Yeah. Well, looking to see when it was here. So I can go back through my notes and look and see. But it looks like 26th of January and it's the 28th of February. It's been a month already.
Yeah. So some cool things. I am growing my book professionally, which is amazing. Added a few more nonprofits. I will be quoted in Newsday, which is a regional paper out here for a tax article.
Nice.
Yeah. So I'm working on some side articles to see if I can get them published in different arenas, different, business publications and online. And then hopefully that will lead to the book, which we talked about, which you kind of gave me a starting point. But I want to see if I can develop a readership first. And then also I will be planning a webinar for QuickBooks for nonprofits.
QuickBooks for nonprofits, that's cool.
Yep. And then later on today, have a consult with another software that usually nonprofits use called Applus, and talking with them and seeing if it's worth a strategic partnership with them. Because it seems to be another, they just really take the nonprofit 360 approach with when they do the donor management and the fund accounting for the grants and things like that, opposed to QuickBooks where you kind of have to back into it to make it work for your organization.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a lot of fun. Yeah, I was looking back at our last conversation. I was like, oh yeah, I gave her the whole book outline.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful. And actually from our conversation, we had talked and you told me, Nicole, why don't you try looking at MBA programs abroad? And I actually took your advice and I did. And I was really content and really happy with what they call Open University UK. It has it's AACSB accreditation. It's around the same as a state MBA program. If you look at New York tuition for an in-resident program, but it's AACSB accredited. It has accreditation with Scotland and parts of Asia, I think. And what happens is once you're a CPA, you can apply for reciprocity, and because that college is abroad and already has the accrediting body, you can become licensed in all those other countries as well.
That is so cool. I'm so glad that you explored that.
Yeah. So that was something that came, and I talked to a friend who's a college advisor, and that sort of university wasn't even necessarily on their radar. Yeah. And I was like, and they were like, Nicole, are you sure you want to do that? I was like, absolutely. I think this is a win-win. Because so we have Rosedale Trapala, which is your typical local CPA firm where we're full service, AICPA peer review, and we do tax, audit, and accounting. And then you have CPA Tax Partners, which is our virtual national firm where we do tax and accounting, but we're getting clients because our storefront is a website. We're getting clients from all over the world. So I think having an international MBA program under my belt would be better suited.
Yeah.
And then, it sounds like they have a really strong alumni network all over the world. was like, that's amazing.
That's so cool. You know,
Yep.
I'm happy that you explored that, but I'm more happy that you explored the things that we talk about. I don't always get the feedback. Some people are like, like I haven't talked to them in 3 months. I'm like, hey man, what's going on? And they're like, I've been so busy doing all the stuff you suggested. And I'm like, oh my God, like, well, wonderful. I'm glad. I'm happy.
No, it was really helpful. And then the book thing is fantastic. It is a lot of work though. Like it is and it isn't. You know, it's just really getting your thoughts, everything down to paper, then having it edited and going through everything. But when I looked at it, I was like, the bigger problem is I could use it as a lead magnet, which is fantastic, but a lot of work. Yeah. Or I can, you know, try to sell it, so to speak. But then again, I don't necessarily have a readership for that. So I was like, let me see if I could do a couple articles first and get those published and start getting my name, you know, out there.
I've had a couple published on medium.com.
Yeah.
And then there's a website called Haro, Haro, Help a Reporter Out. And I've answered a few of those. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm on Haro. LinkedIn groups is really good. You'll find some columnists in there who are looking for expert quotes. And that's how I got the Newsday quote. So the whole process is just kind of opening my eyes to a whole other level of marketing and another way to get exposure that not necessarily hiring a PR firm to do it. I know some CPA firms will do that, but you know.
I found that like there's nonprofit groups. So I've been going in groups and just answering questions.
That's what I do.
Without asking, people have been friending me, listening to my podcast, and joining my group without me even asking.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I like it.
Good.
Yeah. You ready to kick this thing off?
I hope so. I think the real question is, are you ready to kick this thing off? You sound like you had a very long day.
Well, my first appointment today, I heard from a gentleman that he's got 3 jobs. He's trying to run a nonprofit and go to school full time.
Oh, wow.
So I had to recommend to him that he put the nonprofit on pause, put his foundation on pause.
That is a very strong recommendation, but probably one that's the right direction for him at the moment.
It is, and it's hard to do that because you want people to do the thing that they're passionate about. But I'm like, hey, brother, you are living, you know, with your sister, which there's nothing wrong with that. But it sounds like you need some wins. It sounds like you need something different.
Yeah, right.
And you want to serve these people, and you just don't simply have the time and the bandwidth. So let's see if he takes some advice, and I hope that he does. And I hope great things are coming for him elsewhere. Yeah.
So I'm just looking some other things that we had talked about too. Just fiscal sponsorship. So sometimes when they're like community action or grassroots, that sometimes forming their own nonprofit doesn't make sense for the first couple of years. And then we had also talked about functional expenses and just how they tell a story.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So just, I don't know, because the more, you know, people I'm into, and because everyone's getting ready for annual reports and prepping, the functional expenses is coming up as well.
Okay.
So.
Just so you know, my internet's kind of a little wonky right now.
Okay.
So I might ask you to repeat something.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
And then my editors will take care of it and they'll make you sound glorious like you always do.
Awesome.
Okay. I want to close some weather apps here and make sure we got the bandwidth to talk. Are you all set? Are you all ready?
I'm ready.
Because I'm definitely ready. I'm going to make sure I'm recording. I'm recording. Good. Hey, Travis Johnson here, nonprofit architect, helping you build a stronger nonprofit. I'm here with Nicole Heid today. If you love the show, love what we're doing, go to patreon.com/nonprofitarchitect. Give $10 a month, contribute, help keep the show on the air. It won't cost you an arm and a leg. You won't even notice in your monthly budget, but you'll help keep the show on for everyone else. Nicole, how are you doing today?
Travis, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing wonderful. I'm looking forward to our show, and I'm so excited to be here and share my knowledge with everyone.
Heck yeah, that's why I have you on. This isn't a free ride. I need you to do some work here this morning. So tell us what you do with Rosedale CPA.
Sure. Rosedale Policy CPAs. I'm an accountant. I specialize with nonprofits, and they're typically anywhere in the range from revenues of 20,000 to about 50 million. My background is an outside accountant where I go in, I prepare the tax return, I do the financial audit, or they hire me on a whole different level and I act as their outsourced director of finance or controller for the larger entities. We also have another firm called CPA Tax Partners, which is our international or virtual firm where we have international clients and nonprofits whose mission might be based abroad, but their campus or their office is in the United States. So we do the tax and accounting work for them.
That's really cool. And nonprofits, usually, especially startup nonprofits, kind of the tax impact of a nonprofit is kind of like an afterthought. They get through the year, they get their paper together, and like, oh man, I might have to file taxes. In a nonprofit work, we call that a 990. What can you tell us about 990s and the different types of filing for nonprofits?
Sure. So there's 3 different types of 990s that nonprofits can file. They can file a 990 or a postcard, and that's if they have less than $50,000 in gross contributions or receipts. Then there's the 990EZ, which is anywhere from the 50 to 200,000 mark and no more than $500,000 in assets. And then they have the 990, which is anywhere $200,000 and up and assets exceeding 500,000. So the deadline for the 990s is May 15th, or if your fiscal year ending, it's the 15th day of the 5th month after your fiscal year.
15th day after the 5th month, May 15th. Okay. Different than April 15th for your regular filing. You get an extra month.
Extra month. Yeah.
Extra month. That's good because sometimes you need that extra month. So what kind of situations will nonprofits find them in where they actually have to account for other taxes?
Sure. So when you say other taxes, typically when they're a nonprofit, they are recognized under the 501c3 status of the Internal Revenue Code. So they're tax exempt. However, there are some times where they might deviate from their mission and there could be something called unrelated business income tax. And you typically see that when they, for example, a community organization was running a gym and they had a membership or due subscription, a monthly fee to come use that gym. If that's not directly tied into their mission somehow, they could be in a gray area and have to file a UBIT return. Some other things that nonprofits, especially when they're starting out, may not necessarily be aware of, and it's not necessarily a tax, it's just an additional annual return or annual report that needs to be filed. So most nonprofits need to be registered with either the Secretary of State or Consumer Affairs in the state that they're soliciting donations from or contributions from. So let's say I'm a New York nonprofit and I'm soliciting donations from New York residents, I need to be registered in the state of New York, which is an additional annual return. Now, if I go over to New Jersey and I start soliciting from New Jersey residents, I also need to seek permission from either the Secretary of State or Department of Consumer Affairs to solicit donations from their residents. So that increases my filing, my clients year for myself and my nonprofit.
Yeah, that's important to know. There's a lot of cities that are really quote unquote border cities like Fargo Moorhead between North Dakota and Minnesota. You've got Kansas City that's in Kansas
City.
And also in Missouri, which is a huge one. You've got St. Louis and East St. Louis, which is in Illinois, and they're right there on the border. And those exist all over the country, and most people might not be aware that they need to register in both states.
Right. I just actually had this from Kansas City, and I had to ask the nonprofit, okay, where are you actually doing business in? Like, where is your nexus for filing purposes? And then where are you seeking solicitations from? So it's a two-pronged question.
I think that's important to know. I also understand that you are very knowledgeable on Guidestar and what that might mean for a nonprofit to be on Guidestar.
Yes, Guidestars are fantastic. It's a fantastic website, and it really helps the people who are making donations, your donors, understand more about your nonprofit and make it transparent. So Guidestar has this great resource where they have their seals of transparency, and they essentially rank a nonprofit based on how transparent they are. So some things that they might want to include in there. Let me see. So for the bronze is basic information, and that's just basically your 990, which Guidestar will pull from the IRS website, their master business database website. You have the silver, which is your financial information. So if you're uploading annual reports, any sort of financials, maybe you had a certified financial audit, a review, or a compilation done by a CPA firm. Goals and strategies would be the gold level, and that's more strategic planning, what's going on with your nonprofit and where do you see yourself. And then there's a platinum level, which is so exciting because that's progress and results. And one of the things that sometimes nonprofits, I think, overlook in this when they're so busy with their mission and trying to deliver amazing results to improve and strengthen their communities, is how to track that data. So the real important thing about the platinum is that you're basically releasing that information to the public of how much money you raised and how did you serve your public. So let's say you're working in with undomiciled people, or you're working with a homeless shelter or something like that. It's how many people I served and how many people I served per dollar. They've requested that either you have a consultant come in and verify this information to guarantee a platinum level with Guidestar, or you could have a CPA firm do what's called agreed upon procedures. But we'll actually take your data and confirm the results that you say that they are. And it's considered a type of assurance work that we do. It doesn't necessarily fall under a financial audit, but we have done that sort of work for nonprofits before. It's kind of similar when, if you watch the lotto and they always say like, oh, this lotto numbers were audited by some big accounting firm, CPA firm. It's kind of the same thing, except we do it for nonprofits.
This external verification that you're doing what it is that you say you're doing.
Exactly. And some really big things that smaller nonprofits may not necessarily tackle in the first couple of years in existence, but they should be on their radar to help them, because there are questions on the 990 if they are filing that will ask these questions, and some of them are conflict of interest policy, whistleblower policy, document retention and destruction policy, executive compensation policy, procedures for monitoring the use of grants, and then a gift acceptance policy, which is, basic things that you kind of want to know. And the gift acceptance policy is important because let's say you have someone who's like, I love your nonprofit, I love what you stand for, but I want to give you $100,000 donation, but I only want to use it for people who are left-handed, who have blue eyes and drive XYZ type of car. And you're like, wow, that is such an amazing donation. However, we don't service that population. How are we going to make that money work? And then what happens is it gets tied up in your balance sheet and you can't use it unless you have that population there. Mm-hmm. So having that policy in place kind of helps you navigate it before someone comes in and makes that donation. And I've seen it happen more times than one where the board's trying to scramble and the board members are either trying to talk that person out of putting a restriction on the donation or saying, listen, we are so grateful for that donation, but we can't use it effectively, and they actually have to turn it away.
There's not a whole lot of boards out that want to turn away that kind of money.
That is very true, but I have seen it done because they just, for sometimes they just really can't handle that sort of limitation because it prevents them from focusing on their mission and creating the impact that they want. Sometimes funds that you receive are restricted. So sometimes with places of worship, which is also considered a nonprofit, they have something called a cemetery fund. And that's actually considered in New York a restricted fund. So very, very specific guidelines on what it can be used for and how it can be used. So it is common in nonprofits to have that. The other sometimes where you'll see where it may not be a restricted gift, but a grant. Grants have very strict guidelines of what they can be used for, and it has to be documented accordingly. So that's another thing that, sometimes grants are received, and in the course of the year, I've seen happen, either the mission's changed or something's changed within the organization, and they're not necessarily servicing that type of people, but they're trying to because now they have this grant. And a lot of miscommunication and a lot of stuff happens that can create accounting problems and headaches for especially smaller nonprofits when they start trying to get into restricted funds and restricted assets.
Mhm. I think there's this common misconception out there that nonprofits can't have money in the bank, that they can't pay employees, and they can't really have overhead.
Wow.
I know that that's not the truth, right? But it seems pretty close to half of the people I talk to think that they can't take a paycheck and can't pay employees. When someone's starting to do this and actually looking at paying certain people, like commonly an executive director is a paid position, what kind of, guidelines do you recommend for how they should take maybe $100,000 worth of income donations to the place? Where would you put how much is going to some kind of staff or overhead and how much is going to the actual vision and the mission?
Okay, so it sounded like there were 2 or 3 questions in that. So the first one is the fiscal reserve. So that misconception that nonprofits have to spend everything that they have and they can't save money for a rainy day, quote unquote, is not true. Listen, if they applied for a grant through a state agency or through a foundation, yes, they have to use every penny of that grant. That can't go back to their rainy day fund, so to speak. But they can set aside contributions. And what I encourage nonprofits to do is to incorporate into their fiscal policy either a 5% savings to start or whatever they can afford. So when things happen, they have money in the bank to pay people. I've seen too many nonprofits where their concentration is strictly on grants or strictly on donors, and then they lose that one grant or that donor, and then they're struggling and they can barely survive. And their going concern, which is their ability to operate in the future for unlimited time, is jeopardized. So that's one. So fiscal policies with an actual savings plan attached to it is super, super important. And once you get the board into a habit of saving and being mindful of costs, your budget will just take, it's just a paradigm shift in the way the board operates and the nonprofit operates. So that's huge, because eventually what it will lead is to a nice sum of money in the bank where you can reinvest it conservatively and possibly down the road many years into an endowment fund, which is where we want a lot of nonprofits to hopefully end up, because we want their mission to be in existence for as long as there's a need for it. Now, the other thing that you brought up was executive compensation. So executive compensation is usually set by the board, and that has to do with a lot of different things. So it has to do with what the executive is doing. It has to do with the size of the nonprofit. It has to do with even the board, how they operate. Some boards are very hands-on and they do a lot of work. Some boards aren't. That, they're more of, we're here to raise funds and make sure you guys are compliant. So there's a lot of different things to take into it. There's usually some sort of benchmarking for whatever that nonprofit is, and they'll compare nonprofits of similar size and similar missions to see if they actually have a similar compensation for them. And if the board can afford it, is it reasonable, for them to afford it? Now, the other thing you talked about was the allocation of expenses, which I'm so excited about, because that'll eventually lead to our functional expense conversation. So when we talk about allocating salaries, listen, in a small nonprofit, so many people do so many different things. We all wear different hats, right? So you might have someone who's like, okay, I'm doing marketing today, but later on tonight I'm going to our fundraising event, and then like tomorrow I'm working on our program, and I'll be in, the school district, or I'll be at, whatever setting where we're operating in. So it's really important, and what I've done with other nonprofits when they have this sort of event, this sort of issues where everyone's wearing so many different hats, is I create different departments in their payroll. And I will say, okay, when you're working on fundraising, if you're doing fundraising things, let's just clock in with your, your hand reader or whatever, that you're doing a fundraising event. Or I will ask them to keep track of it. Usually most nonprofit professionals have a calendar of events. And then we'll allocate their salary based on that, based on whether it's general admin, they're doing office work, whether it's fundraising, or whether it's program expense. So, and those are basically the 3 categories for functional expenses. And functional expenses are so important, especially nowadays. My favorite saying is, numbers don't lie, but liars can figure. And what that means is that numbers themselves tell a story, right? when you read financial statements, I usually read the footnotes first, or the notes in the backs of the financials, before even looking at the financials themselves, because I want the context of what these numbers mean. I want to understand what's going on. If I see a decrease in contributions, or if I see an increase in accounts payable or an increase in loans, I want to understand what's going on to this and why it's happening. And the notes will tell a story. So it's really super important that when nonprofits, especially starting out, and they're incurring these expenses, try to put those expenses into the certain categories, whether they're general admin, and that's just basically the day-to-day operation of running your nonprofit. So some of your accounting overhead might be charged there, some of the rent might be charged there, some of the insurance, some of your office staff salary. Then you have fundraising. So when you go and you're like, okay, I'm going to do a gala, right? All the gala expenses would be pushed there. And then when you have your program, so if your program is servicing, underserved communities, whatever you're out in the expenses incurred for doing that. So part of the salary of people, part of your workers, part of, if there's any cost associated with that, that gets started there. From there, what us accountants like to do, and many others who actually do consulting with nonprofits, we like to kind of view those expenses and where they are in terms of your contribution. So we'll do different ratio tests and analysis to see if they're within a certain measure. Typically, we like to see G&A around 20% or less. And sometimes that's like, people are like, oh my gosh, that's so hard. And it is. Sometimes it's a matter of the way that you're operating may not be efficient. Sometimes it's just that the tech costs of things are so expensive, and there needs to be a cost savings plan in place. And other times it's just, they're in a different cycle. So within nonprofits, there's just a whole cycle like a business. You could be on the up cycle, you could be on a down cycle, it could be a cycle of growth, a cycle of not growth. So it's just a matter of kind of knowing where you are and having those functional expenses be able to help us and help your team, your nonprofit team, figure out what's going on and how to help strategically. The other thing is that when you're doing your annual reports, that hopefully every nonprofit is, even if you're 20,000, at least put a one-page annual report together. That combined with your 990 EZ will be so helpful to donors and know what you do, how you operate, how many people you served, how many people you've helped, highlights that programs that you accomplished. That's so beneficial and makes people want to give money and want to be involved with what you're doing. When people look at a tax return, they don't see that connection. There's no story behind it. So that's why I love comparing, taking the functional expenses from the tax return or from your financials and combining it with the annual report, including pictures and graphics, and make people get excited about what you're doing.
Oh, is that it? Like, holy crap.
That's a lot.
You see, that's why I bring the experts on the show. Most of all, they give me a break so I can breathe, but they actually bring real, true value. You talked about 20%. I believe you said G&A. Is that what you said, G&A? What does that mean for some of our newer nonprofits? I might not be sure what that means.
Sure. So general and admin is basically your overhead costs. So let's say you have QuickBooks subscription, right? Like you're using QuickBooks, you're using Apple, you're using some sort of accounting software. They charge you on a monthly basis, or maybe you pay once a year. So part of that's going to be applicable to your general and general administrative operating expense. And that's just the cost of running a nonprofit, You have someone in your office doing filing or scanning documents. It's G&A. There are ways that you can ask questions to say, okay, well, maybe they're scanning documents for our program. Maybe this is part of the program. But that also comes back to making sure that everyone's job is clearly defined. If you don't have an employee handbook or a volunteer handbook or something like that, you should probably get one, and just kind of outline what each person does and try to keep track of that. The other thing too, that when I say volunteer handbook, which made me think, because a lot of nonprofits at the smaller level aren't necessarily tracking their volunteer hours. It's a really, really great resource to track your volunteer hours in comparison to your mission and what you've accomplished. And even if you're a small nonprofit and you maybe only raised $2,000, that's okay. But let's say you had 2,000 volunteers and each person donated an hour of their time, and now you've got 2,000 hours of volunteer work. That's amazing. That's huge. So there's different ways to evaluate the success and how impactful a nonprofit actually is.
See, impact is something I care about as a donor myself. When I look at a nonprofit and I build a relationship and I want to see what they're doing, I want to be assured that my dollars are going to impact lives. Right? We have in the military, there's this, I want to say it's CPC or excuse me, CFC, Combined Federal Campaign. And in there, you have a great book, and it gives you about a paragraph or so about what a nonprofit might do. And if you are a nonprofit listening to this, maybe you want to be included in the CFC, the Combined Federal Campaign. But there's also in there, it says your expense ratio. It says if you're spending 80 cents on every dollar that's coming in towards your overhead, and only 20% is going to your mission. Like, it tells the donor if you're using money for the people you're trying to help or if you're just using it for yourselves. And please understand, there's things you absolutely should spend the right amount of money on. You should absolutely hire a CPA like Nicole and spend the appropriate money for that service. You should absolutely hire a legal team or a lawyer and get the absolute stuff that you need for that. You should have insurance, especially if you're doing events. You might have building rent, you might have Zoom premium, or whatever it is that you have for you. Spend the money that you need to spend to do the things that you need to do. You, as a CEO and janitor of the nonprofit that you're running, you cannot do it all and be sustainable. You can do it all, but you're going to burn out. Find the things that you're really good at doing. Hire out the rest. It's perfectly okay. Spend legitimate money on CPA services and legal services, and by all means, insurance. Oh Lord, I can't even tell you, buy the insurance. Buy the insurance. Buy the insurance. Buy the insurance. If you're doing an outdoor concert, a summer concert, buy the insurance. If people are like, why would I buy the insurance? You get rained out on a fluke thing, and all of a sudden you've got 20 grand into this concert that you've made $0 on. But if you spend I'm making up a number here, right? If you spent the $200 on insurance, you're out $200 instead of $20,000. Buy the insurance, protect yourselves, and do the right things. One of the things Nicole and I talked about in a pre-interview was the importance of internal controls and end-of-month accountability. Nicole, what can you tell us about internal controls and end-of-month accountability?
So internal controls is such a hot topic right now, especially with smaller nonprofits. So as a nonprofit, right, you guys act as a fiduciary with someone else's money. So what does that mean? It means that the money is not the nonprofit. Even though you have custodian, you have possession of it, you're supposed to act in the best interest of the community that gave you that money. So you have a fiduciary responsibility with it. So what we see is with smaller nonprofits who are starting out is that everyone trusts everyone. Everyone's so passionate about the mission. And they have the same person writing the check, opening the deposits, doing the bank reconciliations, and signing all the checks. So we go in and we're like, ooh, this is an opportunity for someone to take advantage of this nonprofit, right? And because everyone's so trustworthy, it may not be on their radar that someone would even be thinking in that sort of manner. Mm-hmm. So what we like to do is we always advise that nonprofits, no matter what size you are, always have a checks and balance and internal controls. So what does that mean? It means the same person that opens those deposits from the donors who are you're so grateful to receive the checks from isn't the same person that's filling out the deposit ticket, or isn't the same person that's recording it in QuickBooks. Same thing with checks. So we recommend the same person who's recording the invoice into QuickBooks or whatever accounting solution you use isn't the same person who's necessarily signing the check, right? The same person that's opening the bank statements and confirming the transactions out on there isn't the same person that's reconciling the bank accounts on a month-end basis. We recommend that all sensitive information, whether it's donor information, if you have credit cards on file for them, or blank checks, if you have a nonprofit credit card, everything be locked up and only certain people have access to them. We recommend that usually that there's, depending on your nonprofit and the level of checks that you write, that at some point there's a dual signature threshold. If you're a larger nonprofit, you do write a lot of checks, there's something that you can do called positive pay, where you essentially have to tell the bank what checks you are writing. and they'll only clear those checks that come through, essentially. We've seen that that's just financial internal controls, I should say, too. There's also a whole other IT internal controls that we are starting to look at and make recommendations and recommend that they work with experts in that field to also help. So something, just touch upon that, internal control for IT could be entry points for people who have passwords to certain software or people who have passwords to certain access on the server. Email, what happens if you terminate an employee? How do you, ensure that they don't have access to certain things anymore? So there's a whole level and a whole kind of walkthrough that we do with nonprofits to ensure that they're safe and they're not putting themselves at additional exposure.
What have you seen from your experience as either an unintentional flaw or a flagrant abuse of a system that they haven't had these internal controls?
I've seen a lot. Unfortunately, I hate to say, I've seen where certain key staff of nonprofits have run personal expenses through the nonprofit, and we've had to accomplish that. I have seen where through negligence, there's just been expenses that weren't vetted. So meaning that no one got the 3 estimates, no one did the proper due diligence to make sure that they were getting the right sort of price for whatever they were bidding on. I have seen misappropriation of assets, which is saying a perfect example of misappropriation of assets is, let's say, and this is kind of sound funny, but I've seen this. The nonprofit, right? They buy toilet paper for their bathroom, right? It's a public bathroom. It's, helps the program. So when the kids come in, they have a bathroom. When the office staff, they have bathrooms, whatever. Okay. There were employees taking the toilet paper home because they didn't want to purchase their own toilet paper. So there's a misappropriation of assets there. Even time is a misappropriation of assets. So let's say you're salaried and you're supposed to accomplish X amount of hours of work every week to help the nonprofit, and instead you're on Facebook doing personal things but still receiving that salary, so you're not producing work. There's some of that, and there's just some larger issues where there was just outright embezzlement and collusion going on because there weren't strong internal controls. Also, it could be at a larger level, which I have not, we have not seen this or been brought into this, but where you have nonprofits that are established and they're really just a front to kind of funnel money through, and then someone's just using it for their own personal benefit. And on Long Island, where I am, the biggest one that we had was for, there was a nonprofit for breast cancer awareness, and they were in the news several years ago because of this, and I believe the Attorney General, and it was a big to do. A lot of money was taken and not used for its intended purpose. So it's always something, because you work so hard to raise that money and you want to give it back. So internal controls is just so important to actually have in place in there. And then I've seen little things happen where it's not necessarily intentional, it's just negligent, where the person's going to the bank, they're a trustworthy person, they're going to the bank, they're making the deposit for the nonprofit, and for whatever reason, they lost the checks, things like that. So it's always good to have internal controls. Duplicity is fantastic if you can set it up in your procedure somehow. And make sure, if you do have people that are in a financial position, whether it's the ED that has access to funds, or a bookkeeper, or an internal accountant, you might want to consider having them bonded if something happens. And it's just an additional type of insurance policy you can take out.
Yeah.
So.
You see, those are the kind of stories and those are the kind of things that people need to hear, not because it's scary or terrifying, but even something that's an honest mistake can really come back and bite you, or really just tear down a nonprofit. It hits the media. It's totally unintentional. It's fixable, but all of a sudden the media gets a hold of it, and the name is ruined, and there's nothing you can do to fix it at that point. But you had mentioned in our pre-interview talking about end of month accountability. What does that look like?
So I love my executive directors. They are fantastic. They are pulled in so many directions, though, that sometimes, because maybe finances and accounting isn't their cup of tea, or maybe it's an area of weakness for them. They don't focus as much on it. So what I develop with my nonprofits and the EDs and the bookkeepers and whoever's on their team that's handling this, I develop an end-of-month accountability program. And what that is a checklist of things that both the accountant, bookkeeper, whoever's internal handling that role, and the ED or a board member, whoever, again, because some nonprofits, people wear many different hats, but 2 people go through the checklist and they kind of go through everything. So it's basically whoever opened the bank statement, initials the envelope, or prints it out, initials it, does something, acknowledges it on the checklist. The person that reconciled the bank account acknowledges it on the checklist, and then the person that's reviewing the reconciliation after the fact acknowledges it on the checklist, and we go through the whole trial balance. So they're basically doing ticking and tying their whole trial balance to tie everything out, right? Mm-hmm. And you're going to ask a follow-up question, Nicole, what's the trial balance? What's on a trial balance? Trial balance.
You know me so well.
Yes. So trial balance is just basically another accounting report, which lists all of the accounts that you have in your nonprofit. So it starts with your assets, works its way through the liabilities in the equity section, and then your income and expenses. So what I do is I train the bookkeepers who may be amazing and have great experience and already know what they're doing, or could be a layperson coming in who's just like, listen, I just want to volunteer a couple hours a week, and I got handed the treasurer/bookkeeper position. So I train them, and so this way there's dual accountability within their organization, and at the end of the month, there's a clear communication plan in place of what's happening, what's going on, and then the treasurer at some point will get involved and review it as well before the monthly treasurer report, or how often they give the treasurer report. These are usually for smaller nonprofits who are starting out, who kind of need a little bit more guidance because this is the first time doing everything. At the mid to larger scale, we still do the report. We still have a program that we check off when we go down, and we ensure that everything ties back to a work paper and 2 people have reviewed it. But they've been with me for a while, so they kind of already know the deal at that point. But it helps. It's a great way for them to acknowledge it and also have, like, I don't want to say force that conversation out month end, or usually the first or second week of the following month, depending when their their accounting cycle ends. But it makes all parties aware that this is important and you have to do it.
Well, I think accountability is one of the most important aspects of not just nonprofit work, but life in general. If you're held accountable for the things that you plan on doing, if you're losing weight and you have an accountability partner, you guys are working out together, you're that much better. Right? If you have an accountability partner and you're in nonprofit, or it's a team, or it's designed, or whatever it looks like, you're more accountable to the things that you've decided to do. And if you've taken the time to brainstorm and lay out a plan and design the things that it is that you want to do and to accomplish, accountability just makes sure you're on your way to exactly what it is that you want to do and what you're looking for. And the sooner you catch a mistake, or gross negligence or some kind of thievery, the sooner you catch it, always the better it is. You get back on track, you change board members or executive directors if need be, and you're on and moving again towards that goal that you have.
It's so true, and it's so important. And, sometimes it's even the banks make errors. I found banking errors. So sometimes when you have maybe a little bit larger nonprofit and the accounting system is a little bit more complicated, and you have transactions being imported from, the donor management into your accounting software package. Things don't always import correctly. Technology doesn't always work the way it's supposed to work. So having that formal month-end close and 2 sets of eyes looking at it, you're usually able to identify it so much sooner.
I'm with you. Absolutely. So tell me, Nicole, how can we at the Nonprofit Architect help you?
Oh, wow. So we didn't talk about that question, Travis.
You're welcome. Surprise.
Well, I am all about giving back. So if I could plug my upcoming webinar for nonprofits dealing with QuickBooks, that would be awesome.
Can you repeat that? I lost
Sure.
it.
Sure. So I'm all about giving back. So if I could kindly plug my upcoming webinar for nonprofits, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Let's hear about it.
So what I've come to find out is a lot of nonprofits love QuickBooks, and QuickBooks is a great program. It's easy to use, it's functional, and given the scheme of different accounting packages out there, it's probably one of the more affordable packages for nonprofits, especially starting out. And TechSoup has some great deals on it. So if you're 501c3 and you have your 501c3 letter, you can go to TechSoup and you can get a really great deal on it. So what I will be doing is through Facebook groups, through different other organizations, there are so many questions about how to use QuickBooks Online and how to gear it towards nonprofits, because typically it's really meant for for-profit businesses. So I will be doing about a 45-minute webinar with questions at the end to kind of help nonprofits starting out or maybe seasoned nonprofits be more efficient. And I'm happy to include a link that you might be able to post somewhere.
I'm definitely going to include a link. I can't remember. Are you in my Facebook group for the Nonprofit Architect podcast?
I am. I'm so excited. It's one of my favorite groups now. I actually listen to the podcast now. I'm in the group. It's a nice, I listen to it while I do tax returns at work. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited about that, but feel free to post your promotion for your webinar in the group. When's your webinar going to be?
So what I'm planning to do is it will probably be right after March 15th. And if you bear with me 1 second, I can get it up on the calendar. Right. So it will probably be Tuesday, March 17th. It will be live. And then what we will do is we will also have a recording of it. And this way, if people can't attend or, it's during their workday or they're busy, EDs and nonprofit people are always busy. They're so overworked. I have so much, credit.
Especially on St. Patty's Day.
Oh, you know what? Me being an accountant, I didn't even think of that. I was thinking it's after the tax deadline, one of the tax deadlines. You don't get to celebrate St. Patrick's Day when you're an accountant. January through April, you just work. So maybe we might reschedule that for Wednesday then. Thank you for pointing that out. We might do that for Wednesday. That's fine.
Look, I wasn't even tracking that, but I followed on the calendar. I was like, oh, look, that's St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, we don't. You know what? We just work through January through April. Like we work all the time, but our hours increase drastically during the time.
I imagine, and it should, and that's okay. Just a couple of months, right?
Just a couple of months.
Yeah. So where can people, what is the best way, the number one way, the thing you check the most, where can people find you and get a hold of you?
Sure. So I'm really accessible to nonprofits or to my clients. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Nicole Heid, NicholeHeid. You can also find me on Facebook. Or I'm happy to give you my email address. You want to include it? People can always reach out. What I do is, I'm always happy to help nonprofits, especially starting out. I usually do a 15-20 minute consultation pro bono, no charge, just kind of see where you guys are and try to offer any value I can. If you want to come in and be a client, that's amazing. We would love to have you and love to welcome you to the Rose Delta family. And you would be in great company. But I understand with some nonprofits, they want to try to do it themselves first. And, some things, it's not as cost effective and they can try to get a pro bono accountant to do certain things. So, but we're always happy to help. You can also find me in Travis's group and a few other nonprofit groups on Facebook. So if I post regularly. I also have a 990 group called 990 Central on Facebook where I will post different articles and answer questions that nonprofits have about their 990 and different compliance issues relating to either the audit side or the tax side, or even just general consulting questions when it comes to nonprofits. So.
I only got one more question for you, Nicole, and
okay.
Want to say thank you so much for all the value you're providing today. What is the number one mistake nonprofits make when it comes to accounting?
Oh gosh.
Surprise again.
Surprise. Not to say that there's so many of them, but I would say the first mistake that nonprofits make is not hiring or not engaging an accountant, a skilled professional when they're first starting out. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to pay for an accountant or a CPA or an enrolled agent or somebody, to come do the work right away. However, what you can do is that when you're seeking, and this tags goes off of your post that I saw a couple weeks ago about boards. Yeah. So when you're forming your board, there are certain professionals that you really want on your board. You want someone who's just passionate about your mission and who loves the work that you're doing and loves helping. You want someone who's a skilled financial professional. If you can't get an accountant, you can't get a skilled bookkeeper, maybe ask the local banker. Most banks have a community act where they have to give back to their community, and they'll usually, begrudgingly, but they usually will sit on a board as a treasurer if asked very, very nicely. You want to have an attorney. You can see if you can get some sort of attorney to sit on your board. Depending on what type of work you do, it might be beneficial to have a social worker. If you're geared towards music, maybe get a musician. So there's certain skilled professionals that you want to have and that you may not be able to afford to pay for the services right away, but there's other ways to try to incorporate them and work within your budget and within the guidelines of your nonprofit. So I would say the number one mistake that nonprofits do make in the very beginning is not having a skilled professional and accountant, either paying for their services or getting them on the board somehow and getting them involved.
Well, thank you, Nicole, so much. Non-stop content, non-stop value. I love having you on. Thank you so much, Nicole. I look forward to talking.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you having me. It was a fantastic experience.
That's it.
Oh, that was good.
We did a podcast.
Yay! Okay, so there's just one thing that I need to kind of maybe edit out. So I'm not officially a CPA. I'm an enrolled agent, which is I'm licensed by the Treasury Department. I have 2 parts of CPA exam pass, blah, 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 but we can't say that I'm a CPA because that will create licensing issues later on when I go to apply at the end of the year. That's the only thing.
Okay. I said you'll work for Rosedale CPA, right?
That's okay. I work for them. I'm an accountant. I actually lead their nonprofit division. I do all of that stuff, but you can't, in the Board of Ethics and state licensing, you can't represent yourself as a CPA as you're not. That's the whole thing. So that little part where you're like Nicole Heid, where you're like, oh, a CPA like Nicole, you got to take that part out. That can get me into legal trouble.
Edit Nicole CPA out.
Yeah, you could say Nicole Heid enrolled agent. That's 100% true. I have the same representation rights as a CPA attorney to go before. And in fact, I actually saved one client $5,000 in a tax audit. I found out yesterday, I got the letter.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a good one. Solar credit. But yeah, that's the only thing. So I still do the same work. I still do the audit work. I still do everything. Partner just signs off on the audit.
Okay.
That's all.
So my editors listen to this thing and they listen past the end. When this comes out and you hear it, if I missed that, let me know immediately and then we'll get it taken out.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't think it's an issue. It's not like a huge issue. Like there is, you could be like, okay, no, it was an accident, whatever. But that's just, I can't be known as.
I understand. Right. If my team misses it, if I miss it, you're the final backstop. It comes out. You're like, oh crap, it's the episode. Listen up to like, Travis, you missed the thing that we talked about. Okay, and then I'll get it fixed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's fine. Otherwise, it's not a big deal. And then you could put EA after my name. That's the same thing.
Okay.
And that's fantastic. So.
Well, cool.
Yay! Thank you. I'm so excited.
Have you ever been on a podcast before?
No, you're my first podcast.
I'm your first podcast?
Yeah, I have another one scheduled to do probably maybe closer to after tax season, but it's through my business networking group where they kind of take what you do, and the woman is an amazing storyteller. Meryl, the Mensa woman. I have to send you an introduction. I talked to her the other day. She's like, yes, send an introduction. But she's amazing, and she actually does this kind of podcast for us, so we want to do it on tax, whatever. And she kind of creates the story to make it entertaining. She did a podcast for an estate attorney and who has an interest in historical wills, so they actually kind of did this whole thing. It was really exciting. Then she had one for another gentleman who does irrigation and holiday lighting, and his holiday lighting podcast came out right before the holiday season, and it was like a huge explosion. So she's kind of like you and tries to tell a story and directs. She says it's very painless, but I was like, I don't know, it's scary.
I need something from you. I don't have it. I don't have a bio and a headshot from you.
Oh God, I'm so ugly. I'll give you a bio.
Whoa! Holy shit!
No, my headshots are horrible. I hate them. It doesn't. I don't think they translate well. I look horrible in them, but that's fine. I just sent it to the columnist too. So because she's like, Nicole, I need a headshot. Like, oh God, why? Okay, fine.
I've never had headshots done, not a single time.
Really? That's so.
No.
How did you do it? Where'd you go?
I haven't done them ever.
Really?
No.
I went to what is it called, Life Studio, whatever, through JCPenney, and I had a suit on and the gray background, and then they do the other type of leafy blurred background, and they look horrible, but whatever.
You're in Long Island?
Yeah.
I got a friend in Long Island, Paul Scancarelli. He runs oh God, it's what does Paul do? He's got this thing like Paul's Buddies or something. I know he's got to have some context for you.
What is Paul's? Is it a nonprofit? It sounds like something like a nonprofit.
The Long Island Buddy Club.
What is that? That sounds interesting.
So he was. Let me see. I want to make sure I have the details right here. He had huge problems with self-confidence in school, and then he worked on himself, and then eventually started going out and doing things with a couple of guys from special needs stuff, and he called it Paul's Buddies.
Nice.
And he'd go out and he'd just have a good time with these people. Well, they would invite their friends, and they got to call. You got to come along. We're Paul's Buddies, and this thing grew, and he changed the name a couple of times, and eventually ended up to Long Island Buddy Club.
Nice.
But he's in Long Island. He's in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, I'd be happy to meet with him and see. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in. I'm pretty sure he's in the group. Feel free, absolutely ask questions in there.
Yeah.
Try to connect with people in there. I don't think people are doing it for whatever reason. Some people are like, "Oh, it's your group," and the whatever. I'm like, no, it is for nonprofits. It's for you all.
Do you know that there's some groups where, so I'm all for connecting with a group and posting something and then trying to do one-on-ones with each person in the group through Zoom, so you really get to know them, you get to know what they're about, you get to know about their nonprofit or whatever they do. Sometimes there's a synchronicity there where I can make a contact or an introduction and help them. Sometimes it's just like, hey, I've got an accounting question, or whatever it is, but I'm happy to do it, because you never know where your next referral is going to come from in reality.
And you do board training too, don't you?
I do board training, and that's always a fun, exciting thing.
Feel free to post that you're going to do board training on there, and I'll go on and put a comment that I absolutely approve of what you're trying to do and have a group together. I'm working with, I think my last one the last one I posted a week before this one. I did one with Teresa this week. Last week was Candace Leoza. We're looking at creating a nonprofit mastermind where we come in and teach for 30 or 40 minutes and then have questions and talk about whatever the thing is.
I'm telling you, the EDs, I've been trying to crack this several different ways, because EDs are so busy during the day. They're so overwhelmed, and a lot of them don't have that accounting background. It's even if I can get their ear for 30 minutes to an hour and just give them some basics so they know what to do and know what to look for, they would be better off, and their nonprofit would be better served. And because I've come now into 2 nonprofits where the EDs have been cycled out because of financial issues, because of the control.
Yeah.
So,
but no, that is something that I fully support. I think my group is, other than getting in, my stuff is shareable. It's requestable. You can bring people in. I want people to connect and get the things that they need to be successful.
I don't remember his last name, but Steve, he's the IT nonprofit guy. I've been trying to connect with him, but with tax season, it's sometimes hard to get on the Zoom call in the middle of the day. So it's been going back and forth. But I think you might have connected with him. I just wanted to know what your feedback was, if you had any.
With who? Steve?
Steve. He's like the IT nonprofit guy.
I don't know that I've connected with a Steve.
Steve, let me see. Steve, not Harvey. Steve Haviland.
I have not connected with.
He's an IT person. I thought like you guys maybe it was like a very close post and whatever. And it was like both your names close together. But he's like the IT nonprofit guy. And I forget what state he's based out of, but he does a lot of consulting IT work remotely, and he's trying to develop his firm. Mm-hmm. And it's such a huge issue with the IT and what's going on now. And depending on how their infrastructure is set up, like I just had one nonprofit where they, because they didn't have the correct internal controls or firewall or spam filters, the emails got hacked. And you look at something like where I don't know if you've been following, I forget where the article was first posted, but Barbara Corcoran, the real estate, the lady from Shark Tank, mm-hmm. her assistant's email got phished, scammed, and then it looked like an email. It came from somebody that they knew in the office saying, "Oh, please send a wire transfer to this person. I'm doing whatever work." It looked official. They weren't paying attention to the email addresses because it was basically, named as, and if you actually click on it, it's a totally different email. Like $400,000 went out.
Oh my goodness.
Like just because of not having proper IT structure, proper internal controls, proper. I'm actually probably going to post about it on LinkedIn this week. But like stuff like that. And, something that could have been completely avoidable. And that's whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit. But I found that with the nonprofits, because of lack of resources, lack of training, lack of whatever it is, lack of time, or, people aren't going to target us, it happens.
Yeah.
It's been happening. So, I've been trying to connect with him to kind of see where we can maybe do something together, because accounting and IT tends to overlap.
I gotcha. So I put Paul Scancarelli's info in your messenger.
Yeah.
Next time you're on a podcast, close out all the programs that are not Zoom. So any alerts that come up, they don't show up in the video or in the recording.
Okay. Did they show up?
I heard them. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that'll get you.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
Hey, I love having you on. I can't wait till this comes out. I'll put together a little promo thing for you, and I'll send it to you and share the link and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited. So I'm going to share it through LIPM, which is one of my networking groups, and share it through LinkedIn, stuff like that. The other thing that I'm working on is the Guidestar, like a Guidestar handout, because it's kind of confusing, I'm finding, for nonprofits just starting out, what they need right away versus what they can do over several months.
So I need that in your bio and your headshot, and then I'll attach the Guidestar one page as a download on the podcast so people can check it out in the links and have that. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm working on it. It's not a final project yet.
I understand. You've got a couple days.
Okay. So because I'm literally working 15 hours a day. I'm not even kidding you, like 7 days a week. So what is my deadline for you so I can put this in? When do you need everything by?
So I have a few podcasts ahead of you. Where's my thing at? Thing. Here's the thing. I've got so many things.
Can I just say I am so impressed with you right now for going to do like an all day like brunch and drinking and bar raid, and then I was like, oh, I'm not sure how this is gonna go, but okay, this will be fun. Just fantastic.
Well, thank you. I'm not a huge drinker. I think I had a couple of bourbons.
But those are kind of heavy. They have a high back. They
do. So Teresa Blaze, I just posted Teresa. Mm-hmm. And let's see, what week is it? It is 26. So the 4th should be Lakia. Mm-hmm. And the 11th should be Crystal. Mm-hmm. And the 18th should be Juliana. Mm-hmm. And the 25th should be you. So you've got a couple of weeks.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's easy. Okay. So I could like literally do everything on like a Sunday before I go to work.
You've got some time, but you talked about St. Patty's Day being your event, right? So if you want it out before then, we can do that. The other people ahead of you they don't know what order they're in, right? They didn't have anything that they were promoting, right? So it's not really a huge deal. You're not bumping them off the list, right? Their podcast is still going to get out.
I don't want to bump anybody. I don't want to create enemies.
If anyone complains, I'll be like, it was Nicole Heid. It was her fault. She didn't have stuff together.
So okay. So I could get you everything this Sunday, which is what, the 1st? That's fine. I could do that. And then, okay, so March 1st. Sorry, I'm just marking it in my calendar.
That's only 2 days.
Yeah. Well, the headshots are already done. I just look ugly in them, so that's fine. And the bios.
Do you have a good selfie?
I'll get a good selfie. How about that?
Do you have a good selfie?
Babe, can you take a good selfie of me? Yeah, I got a thumbs up. My boyfriend.
Did you see the one I posted of a couple days ago with Juliana Hicks?
No.
So it was the Zoom. It was her top, me bottom. She had frozen. So I did the face, and I took a screenshot. She loves it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, look at my profile. It's on there.
Okay, I'll have to go. Let me go see if I can get in. I'll do that. I'll figure it out so it's like better.
Yeah.
But I look. Oh my god.
Your profile pic looks pretty good, I think.
Yeah, but that's not. I mean, I can send that, but that's just like me in the kitchen, like, hey, nothing.
There's no rules.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, when you talk about business, they're all like, oh, you have to have like the great background. It has to be all professional.
Mark Zuckerberg wears a fucking hoodie and jeans and Chucks every day.
Listen, when you make that sort of money and you've proven yourself, you can wear whatever you want.
He didn't make that much money and then decide to wear that. He wore that the whole time.
Well, I know, but that's because he has his own, his own thing.
Do you know why he does that?
No.
Because it's one less decision he has to make.
That's amazing. I like it.
His closet is full of all the same hoodie, all the same t-shirt, all the same jeans, all the same socks, and a couple of pairs of the same shoes. He walks in, just grabs his outfit, and he goes on his day, and he doesn't have to think about it.
Oh, I wish I could do that.
You can.
Just walk around in hoodies all day. Sorry, guys, it's a hoodie day.
You can wear the same thing every day. There's no rule. Ladies don't because they feel like there's some rule. There's no damn rule.
There's no damn rule, but if you're in there's statistics that they show, if you're in a sales type of role or you're in a role where you're engaging with certain audience members, you want it to be bright, you want it to be colorful, you want it to be, a little bit more than just wearing the same thing every day and,
Right, but how many times do you see the same people?
I mean, I see my office every day, so.
But they already love you.
They do.
Yeah.
Wait, is it the one?
Well, that's with Teresa Blaze. That's this week, right?
Right.
If you scroll, let me see what day it's on for me.
Oh, this one. Got it.
Yeah, she was frozen. My internet was being crazy, so I made a face and hit say and took a screenshot, and there it is.
Oh, love it. Love it.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I need a favor from you.
Yes. What can I do for you?
Go on Facebook or LinkedIn and say you had a great time talking to me.
Facebook.
And I provided you value, right? You're looking at abroad MBA programs.
Yeah.
Please share that. Please say that, hey, I got on with Travis, had a great time, blast, tons of value. Even though I was the interviewee, I gained information. Love them. If you haven't scheduled a call with them, get on a call with Travis.
Okay. So obviously you're on LinkedIn and you're on Facebook, so I can tag you in that post. Is there anything else you want me to include, a link or anything like that?
If you'll throw a link to the podcast, nonprofitarchitect.org, that'd be fantastic.
Link to podcast. Okay. And then, because it is St. Patrick's Day, and I imagine there's a lot of people who probably won't attend on St. Patrick's Day. Do you think that's probably better to schedule for the Wednesday?
So most of my stuff, today's Friday for you, right? Most of my stuff ends up being on Friday during the workday. Some people love Monday, some people love Friday, but any way you do it, you can put it out there and you can record it, and then you can use that later for future training.
Right. Okay. Because I just want to make sure that it's got, it's like, I don't want to be like, oh, great, I have questions from the audience, and it's just like cricket, like nothing.
So if you send out like an email blast and you ask for questions, if you go full screen like Zoom like this, and you go full screen and you can't see any of the attendees, you can have that list of questions ready, even if no one shows up. And if nothing else, you get great practice talking about the thing that you want to talk about.
See, you have no idea when I talk. You're like a Meryl. You're like a male Meryl. When I talk to Meryl, I have like all these little I'm like, oh, paradigm shift. Okay, got it. Write it down. Put it into action. Like same thing when I talk to you. Okay, ooh, paradigm shift. Got it. Put it into action. Like I'm like, okay, I met a business analyst the other day who's absolutely amazing, and he worked for MetLife for many years. Oversaw 13 teams, international, 3-year type project, like multi-million. The way his mind works is absolutely amazing. But he does college planning now, right? So I told him about the MBA program you told me about, and he was just like, oh, wow, that's amazing, But he's another one, like you, like all these little, like, hey, here's a paradigm shift. And I'm like, ooh, I'm going to put this in, this is great. Okay, so Monday, Friday, and then I'll just start asking for questions now. So this way I don't, because that was my biggest fear, like, when you do something like an in-person seminar, maybe you get like 1 or 2 people, and it's great because then it's just one-on-one training for them. But this is my first go doing it, and it's the middle of tax season, so it's taking a little extra work to get it done. So
here's the deal, Nicole. It's probably gonna suck.
Probably.
And it's not because of you. And it's not because of the material. It's not because of your knowledge. It's just simply the first time you're doing this thing. It's not going to be whatever it is you think it's going to be, right? There might be one person. There might be 500 people. You have no idea. But either way, you're not prepared for 1 or 500.
Right.
And that's perfectly okay. It's okay to be new. It's okay to be green. It is okay not to know everything. It is not okay to be a liar. Right? So if you're authentically fumbling through something, that's cute, right? People can buy that, right? It's not okay to be a fraud, a phony, a liar, or a fake, but it's perfectly okay to be new. So don't worry about it at all.
Okay, that'll be good. I'm a little bit worried about the tech side of everything, but it'll be okay. And then I know.
Do you have the paid for Zoom?
Yes, I have paid for Zoom. I have a couple other platforms I might try before just to see how it works, if it's better or worse. And then once it is recorded, I think they're going to put it on the CPA Tax Partner site. They're really eager to have an associate and myself write articles, publish them, get them out, and really blessed because they're basically saying, Nicole, just finish up the last parts of the exam. We'll make you partner. And, you could lead a nonprofit division. You're already doing it. They basically are just like, whatever you want, we trust you. Just don't do anything crazy. Don't get us into trouble type of thing, So they're really great partners.
Let me know what you're doing. Let me know how I can help. Let me know how I can be involved and contribute to what you're doing.
Yeah. So you have so much to offer. I just don't know how to, when you talk about networking, you try to listen for keywords or, so you can make the connection for somebody.
Yeah.
For you, what is it? I know you do a lot of consulting work. We've talked about this. Like you help a lot of people. You do a lot of consulting work. Like what is it for you? Is it getting?
I 100% want to add to your question.
Okay.
I need a bathroom break.
Okay.
1 sec. Oh, hey.
Hi. Okay.
So what do I do?
I know you do so much, but like, where can I, is it helping you find awesome people to get on here, or like?
I'm always looking for guests, right?
Okay.
I'm always looking for people that love this kind of mission, that are willing to share and promote things. I'm looking for people that I can help build stronger nonprofits directly. I've had a few, there's a banner month in coaching consulting clients this month. I've had a couple of wins, pretty excited about that. But the things that I really do is I bring people in. I got to pull up my little format here that I have. As I bring people in and we talk about being awesome. Like, what's it like to start a nonprofit? What's the difference between for-profit and nonprofit, accounting and legal? I tell them about the NFL and how they were a nonprofit for most of their existence, making billions of dollars, and talk about their mission, their vision, and monetization. That's week one. Week two, talk about board member selection, organization, composition, having them network. What it was like for me as a board member. What's the difference between it's like a solo nonprofit versus an active board versus a fundraising board, what that might look like, right? I talk about social media versus local media, social media groups and communities, social media posts, local TV appearances and newspaper articles, and how to really leverage those things that you have to deal with it. I talk about volunteers versus paid employees, how to do volunteer appreciation, how to create space and trust with who they are and what they do, and like the what's in it for me, with them, like why would they volunteer for you in your program? Talk about networking events and email lists and introductions and speaking and providing value without expectations, and how to collaborate with other groups and other people and other things. Talk about fundraising, how to do a gala, a concert, a raffle, a 50-50, all these things, how to run a campaign, a dollar mansion campaign, how to do an online store, how to create your own conference around the thing that you care about. Right.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you get paid. If you do it right, you get paid as you're creating it. And then grants and recurring donations and what those mean.
Wait, are these part of your podcast, or these posts that you have coming up in your group? Because I see that I feel like there's overlap with some of them.
Yeah, those are things that I talk about. So I have I've got a rough 5-day plan for my group. In theory, sometimes I get way too busy because I work 12-hour days at least every day. When I work Monday, I talk about board things, talk about selection, participation, donations, champions. Tuesday, I try to talk about some kind of media thing. Wednesday, I talk about volunteering, or Wednesday, how to win. Thursday, talk about networking, and Friday, talk about fundraising. So I'll go do a fundraising post today, probably.
Nice. And how do you? Are you using like a social media? Well, I guess a couple things, because I found that the nonprofit audience is really on either Instagram or Facebook. Like really more Facebook is where I've been connecting with people. So do you use like a social media platform to push out all your posts, so you don't have to sit there and post everything like a Hootsuite or something like that, or do you actually go on?
So I have a team.
Of course you do. I'm not surprised.
So I have a team that does the editing and does the back end, and they're working on creating ads for me and actually creating my website. And they're working on things like Hootsuite and repurpose dios. When I create this content on video, they take the content and they dissect it and they create ads and clips and headliners and social media posts and different. They pull the text out. So what the thing that I'm building right now is going to have my podcast. It's going to have video. Right, it's going to be on YouTube. It's going to have blog posts of all the conversations that I have. On my Patreon, it's going to have first talks. So like when we talked the first time I recorded that, that's going to end up on Patreon. So people that pay to support me are going to get to see that kind of the behind the scenes. How do I vet people? What do we talk about? How do we connect?
So it's so interesting because the Patreon and the arts community, whether you're a musician or an artist and you have a following, if you're a composer, it's a huge, huge thing. And I'm trying to figure out how to monetize it, or how does it work for business in the way as like an accountant, an attorney, like I think with your model, it's a no-brainer, but it seems to be like a lot of people are trying to do this sort of paid subscription to get additional access to, aside from the lead gen stuff that's already out there.
Right.
So like how are you doing this? Like, and you're just giving them like access, like behind the wall to like behind the scenes and additional things, or?
Yeah, they're getting the unedited full interview. Like we had a pre-talk and we had an interview and we're having a post interview, right? They would get access to all that stuff depending on, so I want to say, there's some things I'm still working out, but I want to say $10 gets you access to all the pre-material. And I've got a lot of pre-interviews that never actually came on as an interview, right? And then if you get over $20 a month, you're going to get access to both that and the full interview like we're doing.
Oh, wow.
And then for, I think, $50 a month, you're going to get a free swag. I've got t-shirts, obviously. You know about the t-shirts?
We talked about the t-shirts. We did.
Yeah. So I pulled a quote from the day: "The numbers don't lie, but liars can figure."
That's a good one. I like that.
That's going to be on your t-shirt. I also had a guy that made a hat. So I'm going to get a hat in the mail, and I'm going to see if people want to buy the hat. I'll have that for sale. But if they get over 50, they're going to get their choice of t-shirt and a hat, I think.
Exciting.
Do you have your like laptop up, internet up?
Yeah.
Go to YouTube and look up heavy metal heroes.
Okay.
This shocked me. I heard about them about this time last year. They wear superhero costumes. They're Deadpool and Batman and all sorts of stuff, and they take songs that aren't metal songs, like Britney Spears' "Baby One More Time," and they do like a metal version of that song. It's great. Their videos are awesome. They've got like 15. How many subscribers do they have?
I am getting there. 45.9K subscribers.
Yeah,
I've lost 13 pounds so far, and I'm only on week 5.
Yeah.
So they got 5,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Right.
Almost 46,000. Yeah.
46,000.
Yeah, and Britney Spears has 592,000 views, basically.
I'm currently making more money in my Patreon than they are.
That doesn't surprise me. I know that YouTube doesn't convert. That I understand. I understand that business model, so I'm not surprised. But they do have a pretty cool, pretty cool gimmick. That is fun.
They're good too. It's very enjoyable. But it shocked me because they have all these different levels of Patreon, right?
Uh-huh. Really?
But they're making less a month than I am.
Huh.
And I only have a couple people on my Patreon.
Is it the value? Is it the pricing structure? Like, is it the...
I don't know. I don't know if Patreon is more geared towards podcasting.
Interesting.
But I don't even have that many downloads. I think I'm just over 700 downloads. And they've got 45,000 subscribers.
Right.
Yeah.
Not everyone's willing to pay for additional, access, I guess, whatever it is. I mean, I know I've done it with musicians, and there's a couple of pianists who are also composers, and what they do is they'll like write tracks and they'll perform them, and they'll actually give you the sheet music to it, so you can actually play it too. So that was, for me, that's kind of cool, you know, or if they're working on a piece that's very technical and they will say, you know, they'll write out an exercise for you. Like, you know, this is how I broke down this, you know, measure of this Beethoven sonata with this sort of rhythm and, you know, whatever, and fingering, and I practice it this way. And look, I actually wrote you the exercise so you can practice too. So that, I mean, that stuff was great. But it's hit or miss. It's also a personality thing, I've noticed. So maybe you just have a better personality.
I mean, let's be honest. I got a pretty great personality.
You do. You do.
It's been a lot of fun, and I love connecting, you know, with people like yourself and hearing your stories and what it is that you do and how you do it. And even if there wasn't any money coming in from this thing, I would still just absolutely love doing it. I'm having a ball. Definitely love increasing my network and connecting with people, and I'm really happy I get to do that.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I'm going to make an introduction to Meryl for you. I'm going to send an email because I think you guys would be really interesting to talk to. Like, I would like to be a fly on the wall for that conversation. And then I'm actually sitting on a career panel for Girls Inc. And their ED for Long Island is Renee Flagler. And we did, like, a few years ago, we did like a women's networking type mentor program. And I was like, this isn't the right program for me. But a lot of us from that same group still kept in touch. So I'm going to be sitting on her career panel as an accountant for younger girls, I guess. They can ask questions about it. But she would be like, she's just a wealth of information with nonprofits and how to get the things done, how to market yourself, and how to really, for EDs who are looking to take that next step to develop a brand even, she's just a mover.
I'm happy for the connection.
Yeah. That would be cool. I'm gonna write this down because unfortunately, like, I feel like such an idiot lately, like, because maybe, you know, you have a lot of brain power. I'll write things down. Because with tax season, we get tax season brain because we like work so much. It's like one long day in January and April, just one day, and like, if I don't write it down, it doesn't happen because it's just so much stuff flying at you at one time.
I like how you just assume I have a lot of brain power.
You just got a lot of brain power.
You know what I've discovered, Nicole?
What's that?
Is if I say things with confidence, I'm just much more believable.
That's true. Hollywood Squares prove that.
Whatever I say, almost all the time, I speak with confidence, and it makes people feel calm, cool, collected. They believe in me. They trust me. And all those things are true, and they should. But it also makes me sound smarter.
Just the delivery of it. Yeah, but we both know that you're, you know, very, very, very intelligent. We've had that conversation offline. We know. Okay.
Okay.
No. It was a good conversation. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna send that Meryl, Renee Flagler, and then okay, cool, awesome. I also owe you the headshot, the bio, and the Guidestar, which I will get working on, and then I'll also send the link once it's ready for the the QuickBooks, and then. Do you think that it's better just to move it to Wednesday altogether? That's just changing the date. That's easy.
You said, do I think it's better to
move it to Wednesday instead of being on St. Patrick's Day?
St. Patrick's Day is a tough sell.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. I don't, you know what, actually, if it's during the work day, it might be better than the day after.
Well, that's what I'm like. That's why it is. It's, you know, it's like
Wednesday might be worse. I don't know. You never know. People can make time for what they think is important, regardless of what day it's on.
Well, you know what? Then we'll just leave it there, and it'll be recorded, and people can do whatever they want to it.
Okay, but our episode where you talk about it would come out after that day.
No, unless, I thought we were gonna hijack someone else's.
We can, but I need the stuff from you. I need the stuff. You got to give me the stuff.
I know. That's why I have March 1st to get you the stuff.
Okay, give me the stuff, and then I'll slide you in and we'll switch up the order, and we can make that work.
Okay. I'm excited. This is good.
Send it in the email that you send me. Say, hey, remember you promised me a sooner date. If you don't say it, I ain't gonna do it.
Oh no.
And then you'll be hurting and not me. I don't want that. I need to. I don't need to be told a whole lot of things, but sometimes I have to be reminded.
I hope I see a very polite, kind reminder saying, Travis, we discussed this.
Friendly reminder. Get your shit together. Like.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Got it. I'm excited. Have a wonderful evening. I hope your day goes quicker, and I hope that somehow you get to take a nap in between.
Well, this is the time. I don't have anything till 5:30. I got about 45 minutes.
Go nap.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I'll see you.
See you.